Welcome to Small Spark Theory. This podcast is designed as a collection of thoughts, ideas, and practical tips on using marginal gains to help your agency new business endeavours. Small Spark Theory is created and hosted by me, Lucy Mann of Gunpowder Consulting. Welcome back to Small Spark Theory. You may remember in episode 26, we spoke to Iain Johnston on the subject of client development, and we were looking particularly at how other large businesses approach client development and how they can really make some marginal gains to start seeing revenue growth from their existing client base. So I wanted to follow up on that and was delighted when one of our listeners got in touch to share what they've been doing on client development. So this is really a bit of a follow-up episode where we can talk about how some of the themes that we explored in the conversation with Iain are being applied in an agency scenario and getting really fantastic results. So I'm delighted to welcome Jim Hawker from Threepipe. Welcome to Small Spark Theory.
Thank you very much.
It would be great for our listeners if you could just tell us a bit about your career and what led you to Threepipe.
Yeah, so I started back in '96. I came to London and was working for an agency called Harvard PR, mix of consumer and tech accounts. Was there for 4 years and then actually went off to America and lived on a double-decker bus for a year.
Lovely.
Making a TV documentary, which was great fun, running all the PR around that. Came back to London, mix of big agencies, in-house at Amazon and another big agency before starting Threepipe with an old colleague from Harvard, actually.
Okay.
So that was back in 2004. Yeah, and we've changed a lot over the last 14 years.
Yeah.
So we really started out as a PR agency,
Right.
mainly consumer and sports work. Yeah, and over the last 5-6 years, we've gone through a merger and 2 acquisitions. So we're about almost 100 people now.
Wow.
And for want of a better word, and we're going through a repositioning ourselves at the moment, where we are a kind of full-service digital agency.
Okay.
So when we come out with the new positioning, I'll let you know.
Great. Well, I look forward to seeing it. Well, I have to say the one you've got at the moment isn't too shabby.
Well, the ideas and algorithms piece.
Yeah.
It's some people love it, some people don't understand it, and I think, but actually, for the people that understand it, they're kind of people we want to work with.
Yeah.
Really, so it kind of filters the others out.
Yes, which is important.
Yeah.
Particularly today, we're going to talk about client development and some of the things that you've been doing around realising growth from your existing client network. But I'm interested what led you to this. I mean, what is a very comprehensive approach. I wonder whether there was a trigger for that or whether it's something that you've always done naturally.
Yeah, no, I think it was a really good question, actually, and it's what made me focus more on client growth, because the natural tendency is to focus on new. I think there's a combination of things. I think pitching has become hugely problematic for all sorts of reasons, which I know you've discussed on previous podcasts. So, more of a focus on growing clients made sense because it is a lottery, new business. We've also had some exceptional client growth over the last few years, and it was trying to understand why that happened and how we could perhaps put a more formal process around it and encourage more clients to grow in the same way. And I think the other thing that we've certainly noticed over the last few years is the clients are moving around so more frequently than ever before. The stats are incredible. When you look at CMOs as part of the C-suites, they're in the job for less than 3 years these days.
Yeah.
So that's a real opportunity from a new business perspective. And our whole thinking was like, if we can just do a really good job with clients and stay with them when they move, then we've got a great chance of retaining that work as well as winning new work as well. And that's actually worked really well for us.
Is there something in that around the people as well? I mean, back to your point about the positioning and being able to filter out people that kind of don't understand that, and the people that it resonates with are the kind of right people to work with. Is there something in that as well around if the clients that you retain or move somewhere else and you end up, there's less of a lottery, you're working with people who really get it?
Yeah, definitely. And obviously you're not having to pitch for it.
Yeah.
Some of our biggest clients we haven't pitched for, which is amazing, really. Because the frustration of the big pitches is that you're losing money before you start, and it may take over a year to actually bring it into profit.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's we've got some clients that. I think it's a reflection of the industry. It's not a reflection on them, that they are just moving around. They're more focused on short term, and we are able, therefore, to provide not just quick fixes, but deliver value in a quicker time frame than perhaps other agencies can, or we're more focused on that.
Yeah.
And that might be a function of the kind of work we do these days, perhaps, which is more ROI focused.
Okay. So thinking about how you approach it, starting with how you, I guess, perhaps set targets for clients.
Yeah, I think it starts with the clients that we choose to work with as well, which ones have got potential. I think you can only grow clients by the fact that you can work with them in different channels, or they're in markets that are experiencing good growth. So having a view on that when they first come into the agency is really important. We do an awful lot of work of just mapping out where we think the opportunities are. So it's almost like building out a sort of matrix in some cases of each client, which other agency relationships they have, where they don't have agency relationships, where we can add value, and then just being really more laser focused, I guess, on having those discussions about the channels in which we could be adding value where we're currently not. And that does take some planning.
Yes.
And it actually does take some more senior input, really, into that upsell, cross-sell.
And presumably then it's important how you set out your stall from the beginning of the relationship, and making sure that the client understands that this is very much a partnership rather than a kind of reactive relationship, that you are interested in their business and their business growth, so you're kind of in it together.
Yeah, we have an onboarding strategy which is quite comprehensive, really, which touches all elements of account management, from practical pieces of paperwork that need to be filled in through to proper immersion sessions, because until that point you've only really got a sort of an outsider's view on the business, really, and you need to better understand what it's like working within your client business, and what really are the pressures they're feeling. Often they're internal pressures as well as external pressures. So yeah, we do have a strategy in place. The interesting thing for us has been the kind of clients we have and what we're offering on day one, because that might accelerate quite quickly into other pieces of work. And I think one of the mistakes we made a few years ago was trying to sell everybody everything. And what we've learned is to just focus in on one particular opportunity and then cross-sell on the other side once we've got the contract signed and we're working with people. And I think, so therefore, if we're focusing on one channel, therefore, how do we let them know about all the other stuff that we can do?
Yeah, because that can be a real challenge as well. And I know for lots of agencies, they find, whether it's with their direct client or whether it's with procurement teams, that it's very easy to get pigeonholed, particularly where you're one of a number of agencies working with a decent sized client. If you come in on one particular job serving one particular purpose, it's quite difficult to then expand out of that.
Yeah, it is, and I think therefore we try and find clients of a certain size where it's less split up in those kind of procurement ways.
Yeah.
Ideally, our kind of client is probably more of a mid-tier size client where we've got the opportunity to take everything rather than sort of work with a sort of big, procurement-driven sort of opportunity where they've got a very siloed view on everything.
Yeah.
Because in the practical sense, the real world doesn't work like that.
No.
And that's where we've been quite successful. So if we are running, for example, paid social for a client, it's pretty obvious straight away that we also need to be running their display marketing.
Yeah.
Because there's a huge impact on the conversion of the work we're doing. And so we end up having that conversation with the client, who might be doing it with another agency or might be doing it in-house. But for us, it's really important that we have a more of a holistic view of the channels we're running, so we can provide the better ROI to the client, and they understand that.
Okay. So we've talked a bit about the setting out your plan for the client and an idea of where the opportunities are to move into in terms of servicing, and you've got a thorough onboarding process. Once that's happening, where does the responsibility then lie with the team for delivering on that plan, and where's the kind of accountability and the measurement?
Yeah, so we do have a client services director who builds out a client services plan for the start of each financial year. So we're doing that at the moment. It is their responsibility ultimately, but we're all there to help deliver against that plan.
Yeah.
We have a specific client growth target, and we allocate budget against that in the same way we have a new business target.
Yeah.
And we're constantly tracking each one. So if the client growth isn't going up as fast as we like, then the new business target has to, and vice versa.
Yeah.
So the two are directly interrelated, and therefore the resources and time against each other are related as well. And I think that's where we've got slightly better over the last couple of years, is tracking throughout the year against our targets, because if you get to month 10, you're never going to catch up. So the start of the year, the first 6 months are absolutely crucial to ensuring that we've got the right mix of growth in both those opportunities, so we've got a chance of hitting our target at the end of the year.
Okay. And I know you use events as a way to engage with your clients. Tell us a bit about what that program looks like.
So we moved away from doing that whole spray and pray email case study thing a couple of years ago, and just looked at where our leads were coming from, and most of the time it was through relationships. So therefore we've really reset our new business program to create face-to-face networking opportunities, and we've just actually brought in more internal agency resource to help facilitate that as well. Okay. So I've got an event tomorrow. We had one last week where actually we're either running those events ourselves or in partnership with other agencies. So we're tapping into the contacts of other agencies. Interestingly, tomorrow is a lunch event with a recruitment firm that places heads of e-commerce.
Oh, fantastic.
Which are a big focus for us. So he gets a chance to headhunt some of our clients and move them into new jobs. We get a chance to tap into his network. We've got a client that's hosting the event with us, talking about their growth strategy for the next 2 years. And it's quite informal. There's no big presentations. It's more sort of get to know you time. And equally, we had a really cool event last week, which was less presentation focused, more fun focused, but with a message coming through it.
Yes.
And so that's worked well for us. That sort of cross-pollination of networks and more face-to-face time.
And do you have a mix there of existing clients and prospects?
Yeah. And I find it odd that some people try to separate those out, because they're our best advocates.
Exactly.
And also we're trying to grow existing clients.
Yeah.
And often we might be talking about new opportunities which are just as relevant to existing clients as to prospects.
Yeah.
We've got no problem introducing clients to prospects. In fact, that's probably the best thing we can do, really. And clearly we're not going to invite clients who aren't too happy with us.
No.
But
I'm sure there aren't any of those, are there?
Well, there's always some, aren't there? Let's face it. But yeah, I mean that's a strategy that's worked well for us, and I think that's much more authentic and honest and much more powerful.
Okay. Now I'm interested how obviously you mentioned your client service director, but then you've obviously got a lot of other people who are delivering the work and who are client facing as well. How do you enable those people who are spending a lot of time in contact with clients? How do you enable them to be more front of foot?
So we do an awful lot of internal training. We make the teams aware of other opportunities in other teams. Yeah. And that might sound obvious, but actually it's incredibly interesting that like for instance, we acquired a creative agency last year. Yeah. But not necessarily a year later the teams would be fully au fait with the kind of work that they are doing or could be doing. So a lot of the work is actually more internal communication. So when something comes up, they are able to refer it or bring the right person into the room to have that conversation. Yeah. A really good example is a client we won a couple of years ago where we started with PR, and now we're running PPC and SEO in 8 different markets, and within 2 years. And that's purely been because we've brought the right people into the room at the right time. And that's, you can't say it happened organically, because there was a method behind that. But that's something we've put a lot of effort into. We've also productized pretty well in terms of giving people the right information packaged up the right way that they can provide to clients as and when that opportunity arises. So we know that there might be 10 different products that we could package up and cost up, and they've now got that information in their emails so that they can send it when that conversation arises. And again, that's really helpful, so they're not scratching around trying to figure out how to pull that together, because those proposals are used quite frequently.
Yes.
And often they may not be exactly what you end up doing, but they frame what we can do quite well. So that takes a bit of time, and involves the financial director as well as the team leads to actually put those proposals together. But yeah, that's been a big focus.
Great. And you measure client happiness?
We do. So we use a client survey tool, which is like a quick survey that goes out, and clients get the opportunity to rate how happy they are. Mm-hmm. We're doing that every quarter, but I think we could do that every month potentially.
Yeah.
It just gives us a bit of a flag warning system if something is not quite going right, because you get to a certain size, we might have 50, 60 clients. You can't possibly know what is going on day in, day out in some of those accounts. So it's just an early warning system for us if something comes back and says, actually, I'm feeling that, we're not being creative enough, or we're not being strategic enough, or I'm not getting enough sense of what else we could be doing, and then that's presented to the wider management team. And then we actually supplement that with more deep dives once a year.
Okay.
Where we bring in an external consultant, and we'll give him a list of 10 clients to talk to. Yeah. And that's more open-ended questions. And we purposely pick that mix of clients, whether it could be clients with growth potential, or clients where maybe we're flatlining a little bit, and we know we could be doing more. Okay. So what are the reasons for that? So it's a mix of things. And as I say, we've put more focus on client programs anyway. Yes. So we have a lot of client time. Yes. Like tomorrow at this lunch, I've got 12 people coming, but half of them are clients. So that's invaluable feedback. Yeah. People tend to be more honest after a couple of drinks. Yes, they absolutely do. They absolutely do. The truth serum. Yes.
I'm wondering about I do a lot of those types of deep dive interviews as well for agencies, but I'm interested in the online survey that you do. Some agencies I've talked to before have said that they've used systems like that, but they really struggle to get the response rate that they would ideally need to get any kind of meaningful results. I'm wondering what kind of response rates you managed to get from that, and I guess it's all in the framing, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, if they're not getting response, it doesn't fill you with confidence that their clients are engaged in the way they should be. I mean, you always have that sense that it's a bit like TripAdvisor, right? People only complain or fill in a form when there's something going wrong. Yeah. But actually, we do get some good feedback coming through. Our engagement rates are pretty good. Okay. We can see the open rates. We can see and we will always prompt them if we don't get a response, because they know it's valuable feedback for the team, and ultimately we're not going to improve what we're doing unless we get that feedback. No. I think gone are the days when you had that annual review. Yes. Yeah. No, I think you're right. The other thing I'd say, actually, which is good, we've started doing is surveys after every campaign. Ah, okay. And that's more on the digital side, where it's more bursts of campaign activity. Yeah. So there's another frequency of communication where they will provide that feedback loop a lot quicker, which is more. We work for a lot of retail clients where we're doing, spring, summer, autumn, winter, Black Friday, Christmas, bursts of activity, and they feedback after every campaign straight away on that one.
One of the things that strikes me with all of the activities that you talked about is that you, as a business, are very focused on process. and and that's a really good thing, that there aren't that many agencies that I've encountered that have managed to find the time to be as analytical and have put in processes for these kinds of things, and I think a lot of the secret is in the process, and it's consistently doing things. So I think the reason that you get good engagement rates from those quarterly surveys, even though they're online rather than a kind of a deep dive conversation, is because of all of those other things that you're doing, from the onboarding through to the events, through to the training for all of your staff. It's not one of those things that's enabling you to grow your existing clients. It's the fact that it's part of a growth mindset, and there's planning and there's process around that.
Yeah, and it's quite ironic because I'm the least process-driven person I know. So, but I think it's listening to podcasts like this. It's reading articles all the time, which have really helped me move that way. And because it is best practice.
Hang on, are you saying that actually this podcast is the reason you're so successful? Is that what you said?
It's one of the reasons, as you say. It's one of the things.
I'll take that.
But it's when you hear it so many times, and you read it so many times, you think, well, actually, why aren't we doing this? And we actually never had a new business plan written down until like 2 years ago, and that's been hugely helpful as part. And they say actually, you don't work it out until you write something down, and I think that's really true. And the other thing is that a lot of our work is digital and it's data driven.
Yeah.
And so the mix up and makeup of the management team responds to data. So we moved all our new business CRM, which we use Pipedrive.
Yeah.
Which provides us with a huge amount of data at the touch of a button. And actually, I find that quite interesting because actually that's my job.
Yes.
And so when I can run off reports that show, conversion rates at each stage of the funnel and
source tracking,
absolutely all of that.
Amazing.
It is quite fascinating.
It is.
Because why wouldn't you want to see that if that's what you're spending your time doing?
I think Pipedrive are on my list to talk to about sponsoring Small Spark Theory because I'm a big fan.
They are brilliant, actually.
They are. It's really good. Have you also seen, one of my clients uses Pipedrive, and he said to me a few months ago that he just clicked on a particular project to mark it as one, and suddenly a cyclist came flying across the screen, and I said, I've never seen that before.
You haven't won much.
And we couldn't.
It's true, it does happen.
But it didn't happen again. And then suddenly we were all in a meeting together, and he was updating it, and the cyclist came back and he said, thank God for that. I thought I was hallucinating.
No, it's quite random.
Yeah,
but it's fun.
It's fun, motivating. So clearly, even though you're not naturally a process person, and actually neither am I, which is probably why I came to it quite late in my career, and it's something I have to work quite hard at. But also, I really see the value in it. I can really see the change, which makes it quite exciting. But I am interested what your advice would be for somebody in an agency where they don't have a process and plans in place around client development, where you would advise them to start. What would be the starting point?
Well, I mean, even if you don't have a client plan in place, I hope you are, putting forecasts together for the next year. And part of that growth should come from clients.
Yeah.
And so when you're putting out your new business targets, clients should form part of that as well. Then it's an endless debate about whether you should count that towards new business or not. It's contributing towards growth.
Yeah.
It doesn't just happen, and I think that's what I find quite frustrating is that client growth is sometimes thought of just happening by you doing a good job. Actually, it's not true at all.
No.
You do need a plan around it as much as you need a plan around new business. And I spend a lot of time with senior clients, and I'm unlocking budgets all the time that we didn't think existed. And unless we had that senior contact time and it was built into our planning, that wouldn't necessarily happen. I'm
interested what the best piece of advice you've been given in your career.
I think the best piece of advice was go out and meet new people.
Yeah. Oh, great advice.
So I try and meet new people all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I have a sort of target of 2 new people a week.
Great.
Coffees, drinks, whatever, breakfasts, because I know it widens your network, definitely led to new business. definitely led to referrals. It's definitely led to opportunities that wouldn't have happened before. So I put a lot of time into in just making the time to meet people.
It's interesting, isn't it? There's definitely something there, and we've talked before on here about, a growth mindset. And there's something about being really open to just meeting new people, and almost in a way where you're not really strict on the kind of pre-qualification bit, because you never ever know what somebody is going to bring to the conversation, or somebody else that they know that could be your next huge client.
Yeah, I think I think you have to be a little bit targeted.
Yeah.
One of the things that we're trying to do more of is more partnership-based marketing. So, we look at where could we build referrals in from other types of agency, and therefore who are the people I need to meet. So, we just won a bit of business last week from an experiential agency who, I didn't know this guy 2 or 3 years ago, made the effort to go meet him, had a coffee, have given him opportunities, and vice versa. And that doesn't just happen. It's not down to luck.
No.
It's actually getting off your backside and getting on LinkedIn and saying hello. And most people would say yes to that because they're independent and entrepreneurial. And I think, so you have to plan it a little bit. I listened to one of these podcasts, Joanne from Into. Yeah. She sounded really interesting because she's doing a lot of work in an area that we're doing a lot of work in. She's already referred us into someone.
Amazing.
So, I think it's just being a little bit self-motivated, just to do it when you can't be asked as well, but just keep being proactive.
You've given me an idea there. I think maybe there's another episode about agency partnerships and how that can work for referrals, and I think that's something probably that we can go into in a bit more detail. So we may get you back to talk about that, because I know you're doing quite a bit of that. I'm also interested to know which book or film or TED Talk you would recommend.
So I have a man crush on Professor Scott Galloway.
Okay.
He's a professor of marketing at NYU. He's started and sold 6 businesses. He has an agency called L2, which is a research-based agency, which he just sold to Gartner. He's come out with a book called The Four Horsemen about Apple, Amazon, Google, Facebook. He's incredibly intelligent, insightful, hilarious, and honest. And his YouTube videos are amazing to watch.
Okay.
And I've learned a huge amount from him, which has armed me quite well in various conversations over the last couple of years. More about, bigger picture, evil tech, privacy, government being forced to break up some of these things. He delivers it in an amazing way, and he's actually got a weekly podcast as well now called Pivot with Karen Swisher of Recode, which is brilliant as well. So I'd recommend anyone watch his or consume his content because he's across so many different channels now.
Brilliant. Okay, well, we'll put links to YouTube and his podcast on the blog, and we will give away a copy of The Four Horsemen.
I've got 2, so you can have one.
Oh, amazing.
Save you the money.
Thank you. That's brilliant. We will give away that copy to a lucky listener. So you know what to do. Join in the conversation on Twitter at Gunpowder Tweets using the hashtag #SmallSparkTheory, and we will pick a winner and send a copy of Scott Galloway's Four Horsemen. Jim, you've been absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much for coming on, and maybe let's have a chat about that partnership episode and get that in for later in the year.
No, definitely. Thanks for inviting me to this wet and windy cube.
Yeah. I thought we were going to take off at one point there, in true Wizard of Oz style. Thanks very much.
Cheers.
You have been listening to Small Spark Theory, brought to you by Gunpowder Consulting. Join in the conversation on Twitter at Gunpowder Tweets using the hashtag #SmallSparkTheory. This podcast is created and hosted by me, Lucy Mann, and edited and produced by Isabel Jarvis. Music is provided by Duke Deck, available at dukedeck.com, and this episode was recorded at The Pod at White City Place. For more information and to download further episodes, head to our blog at gunpowderconsulting.com. And if you like what you hear, head to iTunes and leave us a star.